Hey everyone, what's going on? So on July 22nd, in the mainstream media, we got this story of a person named Nicole Maines, who is going to be the first transgender superhero on TV in the TV show called Supergirl. And the reason that it's so interesting is because back on May 30th, I made this video in regards to Rudy Giuliani getting booed at the Yankees game. And I also talked about George H.W. Bush and how he collapsed or he was hospitalized in Maine. And it reminded me of some stuff that I was talking about clear back in 2014 about how the mainstream media was running a Maine theme. There was a transgender person in Maine who got beat up and killed, and some guy died on a tractor. There was something to do with Maine justice on Saturday Night Live. There was also this person named Nicole Maines who was in the mainstream media for wanting to use the bathroom at school, and some grandpa got mad about it, and so they had some bathroom bill case because this person was transgendered. And, you know, it's just interesting. How many people really even remember this case or even have heard of this case? And for me to randomly bring up this person that, I mean, I don't even really know this person. I didn't even know it was a celebrity. It's just a random thing that I documented back in 2014. So, just what are the odds that I would bring this up only a couple months ago, and now this person is in the mainstream media, going to be the first transgender person to play a superhero? And what I was talking about a lot in regards to all of this was back in May and June, I was following a lot of King symbolism that was going on. That's why we even had King James losing the NBA Finals, and we had the meeting with North Korea, a bunch of other stuff I was talking about with King symbolism, and I was talking about Stephen King and how, when you think of Stephen King, you think of Derry, Maine, right? So once again, this Maine theme. And it was also because the movie It came out earlier in 2017, and then LeBron James was It for Halloween, and much, much more. So I just wanted to show how it was significant. And another reason the story was so significant was because in 2014, the story came out on George H.W. Bush's birthday, 6/12. And then we had the bathroom bill story in 2015 that came out on his birthday about Nicole Maines, and then George H.W. Bush was hospitalized in Maine. And 6/12 also just so happens to be the same day that Donald Trump met with Kim Jong Un. And I talked about how it was all synced up to the number 510, and also the JFK assassination. John Kennedy in Gematria equals 510, and Trump met Kim Jong Un 5 months and 10 days before the anniversary of the JFK assassination. And they announced that meeting on May 10th, 510, and they called it a peace summit that equals 510. The word Korea equals 510. Basketball equals 510. That's why they had the basketball diplomacy with Dennis Rodman and whatnot. Basketball 510. Kim Jong Un's brother, who he murdered a year ago, his birthday was on 510. I think he murdered him in Thailand, and then they met in Singapore, like a very similar area. Also, the South Korean president became the president on 510. So there's all of these connections to the number 510. And what I didn't notice back then was that in Gematria, the word transgender also equals 510. So what I was talking about is absolutely connected into this. I just want to show you really quick. In Satanic Gematria, the word transgender just so happens to equal 510. John Kennedy, I can spell it here, 510. This is important number. Peace. Well, I'm not going to go through. I got to go out with Sumerian Gematria as well, but, a bunch of them, 510 connections. And now I see transgender is connected, so what I was talking about, it is interrelated by the numbers. But anyway, hopefully you're following me. if you're new to this, you need to check out some links in the description. I just don't want to have to re-explain everything over and over all of the time. But there is this code that exists in the world around us, and if you study it enough, you'll see how everything in this world is interrelated and how our mainstream media is, put in front of us by this certain code, and it's also contrived this way, and our sports leagues are all scripted this way. Everything in this world somehow interrelated. It all stems back to ancient knowledge such as Kabbalah, which is the belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number, and much, much more. But, I don't know. I do this all the time. I talk about a certain thing that nobody will be talking about, and then it comes up in the mainstream media. And, it's mind blowing. Happens all of the time. I'm not even gonna go, I'm not even gonna list examples, but you know, hundreds of examples. Like talking about how the key of David and how Jesus was a carpenter, and the very next day, one of the big mainstream media stories is the death of a Atlanta Falcons player named Keon Carpenter. Stuff like that happens to me all the time. So, moral of the story: let's look at this. Look at the rest of the story here, because it truly is synced up to George H.W. Bush. The word transgender equals 53 and 125. Superhero equals 53 and 125. That's why this mainstream story is telling us of the first transgender superhero and making it a big deal. Because superhero and transgender equal the same. Supergirl, which is the TV show it's going to be on, that equals 53 and 125, just like transgender. George Bush equals 53. George Herbert Walker Bush equals 125. And we also just recently got that case of his heart doctor getting shot, the drive-by bicycle, whatever, the drive-by shooting on a bike. I mean, it sounds like the most ridiculous thing ever, but that was 5 weeks and 3 days after George Bush's birthday. So, completely by the numbers. Even drive-by equals 41 in Gematria and also 510. And think about George Bush being the 41st president. And they call him Bush 41. He was a member of Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones equal 41. So was his son, who was the president during 9/11. Remember, George Bush gave the New World Order speech exactly 9 or 11 years to the day before 9/11 2001. 11 years before. Then the World Trade Center attacks happened on the 11th day of September, and the 11th state hit the buildings that looked like a giant 11. The first plane to hit was flight AA:11. A is the first letter, so a lot like 11, 11. But the reason that I bring all that up is because, too, Al Qaeda equals 41, just like Skull and Bones. Think about Bush 41. Airplanes equal 41. Islamic State equals 41. 9/11 happened on a date numerology of 41. Remember, just after 9/11, the Yankees upset the Seattle Mariners 41 days after 9/11 to make the World Series on Ichiro Suzuki's birthday. And then this year we had a story about Suzuki saying that he didn't know who Tom Brady was. Well, Tom Brady came out of nowhere that year too and took the Patriots to the Super Bowl and won after 9/11 and the Patriot Act. Super Bowl equals 41 in Gematria. There's all of these stories. I'll leave some links in the description. Also, another reason that I brought that up is because the day that the story came out, 7/22, in the mainstream media, it was 41 days after George H.W. Bush's birthday. 41 days, right? Also 1 month, 11 days. New York equals 111 in Gematria. September 11th leaves 111 days in the year. That's why the New York Mets went to the 111th World Series. They came to an end on November 1st, 11/1. And Matt Harvey wouldn't come out of the game until he pitched 111 pitches, because New York equals 111. That's why they were in the 111th World Series. So, I don't know. I don't know the full meaning of it, but I know that somehow this transgender story is interrelated into the George Bush stuff, and it's also connected to, you know, the Donald Trump and the Kim Jong Un meeting, and that's also synced up to the JFK assassination. I forgot to mention I was talking about the movie The Campaign with Seth Rogen and James Franco, that they go and they try to assassinate the Korean leader, right? And James Franco's also in that TV show 11/22/63, where he goes to Maine back in time, and then he goes to try to stop the JFK assassination and whatnot. So I'm pretty sure that book even came out on like 11, was it 11/8 of 11 or something like that too? November 8th of 2011, or maybe it was 11/11 of 11. And think about the World Series this year. It's the 114th World Series. I've talked about this a whole lot because World War equals 114 in Gematria, so does Kim Jong Un. And World War in Sumerian also equals 612, like the day that they met. And after 9/11, the Yankees lost in the World Series, and that World Series came to an end on 11/4, November 4th. So a lot like 114. So there's something important to how World War is connected to 9/11. Also, the kneeling during the national anthem stuff, it's synced up to 1918 in regards to sports, because in 1918 the Cubs lost to the Red Sox in the World Series on 9/11 of the year 1918, the year World War One came to an end on 11/11 at 11, right? So it ended on 9/11, and that was the year during that World Series was when it became popularized to stand during the national anthem at sporting events. So they are all interrelated. I don't know. I got a feeling that we're going to get a big false flag type event sometime around the World Series this year, or connected to the World Series. So just wonder, I feel like transgender is just a catalyst of showing me North Korea and all the other stuff that I was talking about with the number 510. I don't think like some baseball player is going to come out as transgender or something like that, but it is very interesting. We'll leave it there. Just wanted to make it short. Hopefully it makes sense. But what are the odds? I mentioned this random person that I documented about in 2014, and now they're the first ever transgender superhero on TV. Someone who I thought was like not even heard of. So just weird. So have a good one. Peace.